I found the title itself provocative, sort of disruptive, because I picked up the book and I was like, 4,000 weeks? Is that really all I get? And I had to do the math and get the calculator out and go, well, crap, maybe that is all I'm going to get.
Get a few more. I rounded it down for the sake of a attention-grabbing number, but yeah.
But you've got 4,000 left, Scott.
No, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
That's the other thing. I'm halfway. I'm 2,000 weeks in. 3,000, maybe. I don't know. I haven't done the math. But how it gets me thinking, how people think about time. And I'm wondering what you found in your research, how is our concept of time changed through the ages, do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in a way, I admit that the title is a little bit of a bait and switch, right? Because I think that what you might assume if you just saw that title in isolation would be that it is a book that's going to try to sort of terrify you into living a more meaningful life and convince you that you have to sort of pack every spare moment with something deeply extraordinary, otherwise you're not going to feel like you've used your time well. I think one of the things that I'm trying to do in the book is actually to sort of completely undermine in some ways that whole rather stressful idea that we've only got a limited amount of time and therefore we should try in an incredibly strenuous fashion to use it as remarkably as possible. Because this is the thing you're referring to, I think. If you go back a bit, to pre-industrial times, based on the evidence we have and based on the sort of anthropology among different groups of people and communities in the present day, there's strong reason to believe that this whole notion that like there's us, there's you, and then there's time, and these are two separate things, and you have got to somehow win the battle with time or fill your time with sufficient number of meaningful things or extract the most value out of time. There's some version of this adversarial relationship between you and your time. It's actually very strange when you stop to sort of think about it, and it's like the sort of water that we swim in, so we don't normally think of it as being strange. It seems completely natural. But I think it is the source of almost all our stress and anxiety when it comes to time, because it sets up certain expectations, both individually and in the wider society, that we ought to be able to fit a certain amount of things into our time. That if there are more things that we feel we need to fit into a portion of time than we can, then this is a problem and we need to try to solve it. That wasting time is bad because it's a resource and you need to maximize the value of it. All these kinds of myriad ways in which we sort of end up in a struggle with time. I think that a early medieval English peasant, to use the example that I use in the book, would never have had this thought to begin with. To have truly terrible lives in almost all respects, but not this kind of problem, because I think time would have felt much more like just the medium in which your life unfolded. This way of being that anthropologists call task orientation, where the rhythms of the day are just given by the usually sort of agricultural and other tasks that need doing. And so there's a kind of, it's very hard to explain in words, and certainly in words less than just reading a whole long chapter from the book, but it's almost like an absence. There's a sort of an alienation involved in the idea that there's you and there's time and you're in a constant war with your time. And it's more something like, you just are time. You just are this unfolding portion of time that you get. And so questions like, what do I do about the fact that there's more that I need to do than I can do, or something like that, they sort of cease to make any sense. And I think that in this respect, at least, it would have been a much more psychologically peaceful experience to be a medieval peasant. Not in lots of other ways, but so there's a very basic concept of time that we're using. It's absolutely essential in order to do all sorts of things that we've achieved as a civilization, but that kind of systematically causes us a level of anxiety and stress and a tendency to live mentally in the future and all the rest of it, that we could sort of maybe at least sometimes choose not to be entrenched in if we wanted to.
So building on that a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about the paradox of limitation?
Yeah, this is just my name for an observation that crops up in lots of different areas of writing and thinking about time, but not only time, and which I sort of saw as the thing that knitted everything I'm trying to say in this book together, which is that in some sense what we're always trying to do in the conventional approach to time is to transcend or break through our limitations. We're trying to become so efficient that there's no limit to the number of demands that we can accommodate or number of opportunities that we can pursue. We're trying to become so in control or informed about our world that we can feel totally secure about what's going to be happening down the pike. There are all these ways in which we try to transcend our limited state, because the reality is that we have a very finite amount of time, can only do a small proportion of the things that we can dream of doing, and have absolutely no total control over, even the next second of our lives. We just get moment after moment after moment. And the paradox of limitations is just the idea that it seems to be a sort of predictable, law, to use that word a little casually, that the more you try to transcend and fight those limitations, the more difficult and overwhelming and stressful and lacking in meaning life seems to become. And by contrast, the more that you confront and face up to and really try to sort of live wholeheartedly inside and in recognition of those limitations, the more peaceful and meaningful and productive and accomplished life becomes. So it's just a paradox because it seems like a defeat. It seems like resigning yourself to a bad situation, but it is, in fact, I argue, the precursor to doing the most impressive and meaningful things that you're capable of.